Do you think it's going to engender a lot of anger at Wedge Live that I admit to having ranked him third last time?
I feel like you've
It was a stop Hoke vote. It was a stop Hoke vote.
Okay, that's fair. That's reasonable.
History has proven me correct. I would do it again. I'd do it again.
All right.
Ranked Fry third, and I'd do it again.
We're rolling. We're rolling.
This is a real thing. Real thing.
None of you have the balls to stop this. Stop this.
I've got plenty of time. I have nothing else going on today.
We're in the Wedge neighborhood right now.
I decided I have all the stuff set up in my home office, but my background's not awesome. So I just spent the last 20 minutes moving all of it into a different room.
Oh, so you used to have a background and now we have nothing.
I just have the shit on the other side of my home office.
Okay. Well, the danger here is we could green screen you and put anything we want behind you right now.
I'll take that risk. Do
you have 70 minutes to give us like David Brower? Do you have that in you?
I think so. I got a cocktail. I didn't work too hard today, so.
Okay. You've got the energy?
I think I do.
And have you ever hosted a talk radio show before? I learned that about David Brower. He used to have a talk radio show, I guess.
Yeah. I have not ever hosted a talk radio show. I did literally just 5 minutes ago finish listening to his Wedge Live episode.
Okay. What did you think?
From last week.
What did you think?
I'm glad I did because I caught that toss at the end.
Oh,
so
you're prepared.
Yeah. We'll see. He's that's a tall order to follow. I'm mixing my metaphors. He's a hard act to follow.
Big shoes to fill.
Yeah.
So are you of the era that would even remember David Brower had a talk radio show?
No.
I only know him from tweets, and I feel bad because he's had an illustrious career, and I don't remember any of it. I just know him as this very knowledgeable guy on Twitter.
Yeah, I think of him as tweeting about all of those things, but I don't know. He was probably doing, let's see here, I've lived here for 20 years. So he was probably doing all that stuff still, but I wasn't necessarily paying attention at that point towards the end of his illustrious career.
Maybe when he was at the Southwest Journal?
Yeah, possibly.
So let's talk about Erica Mauter. Nobody wants to hear about David Brower anymore. He gave us 70 minutes. We're done with David Brower.
Old news.
So you are...
The news cycle moves so fast.
Yeah. You are trained as a chemical engineer, but I know you as someone who's involved with arts and politics. Did your life take a turn at some point, or is this duality just who you have always been?
Yeah, I contain multitudes. You know, the funny thing is, I talk about this. Well, so I work in progressive advocacy now, right? And so that puts me in a position to meet a lot of people, and you do the thing where you start by telling them your life story. Like, here's who I am and how I got here and why I care about all this work we're doing. And it's I feel often like an anomaly. Like, I've had 3 distinct careers, and I think my life path has just been about doing the next right thing that shows up in front of me. But when you tell the whole story, it makes a certain kind of sense. But I'll say the big shift has been that any kind of political advocacy I've done started out being a thing I did on the side, like for fun.
Right.
And then it became a job. So,
well, that's good.
It's
you want to you want to spend your time doing the things you enjoy. And if you can make that a job, that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's, it has been a good thing for me. It's not always the best thing if you're a person who has trouble with boundaries, per se, but that might be me. But
how's it crossing boundaries for you? How's it interfering with your enjoyment of your life?
I mean, it just means that it's hard to turn it off, right?
Yeah.
Like you spend your whole day reacting, responding, anticipating the news cycle. And then you go home and you hop on Twitter and now you're talking about the news cycle.
Like, especially this past year.
Yeah. Which, I mean, I also curated my life that way too. So like my own fault, but it is meaningful to me to be able to, I what I've been saying is, so just explain the whole thing. Yeah, I started my first career. I was a chemical engineer, worked in the food industry for a minute, worked in the pharmaceutical industry, had ethical issues with the pharmaceutical industry that coincided with the company I work for getting bought out again, and them deciding to shut our plants down. So we parted ways at a time, and I didn't know what I was going to do with my life, and I landed in an arts administrator job with an organization that, with the community choir organization. And that is the thing I had been doing for fun. I had sung with them. I'd go to my day job, didn't give a shit about what I was doing, come home and do some singing with friends for fun. And that's where I met my wife. So that was good. And ended up working for them. And then kind of as that shift was happening, like that's when I started getting politically involved. And that's a very short version of like how I came to run for city council in 2017. But after that year running for council is when I was like, oh, this stuff is taking up so much space in my life that like I need to let it take up more. Like I cannot contain this work that feels very important to me to do that is not also paying me so I can pay my bills. So that's how I ended up then taking a job working in progressive advocacy. So it very much felt like this work feels important enough that I need to let it take up more space. And now it takes up a lot of space, quite a bit of space.
Can we mention what you're doing now, or would your employer not want you to be on a podcast and say who?
Yeah, no, it's cool. I work at Move On,
okay.
AKA moveon.org. And it is the OG digital first national progressive advocacy organization. And I am the team lead for mobile. So if you get texts from Move On, I probably had something to do with it.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. And I love those texts. So
don't let it be, John. Uh-oh. Sorry.
It's okay.
What is going on? Oh my God. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. You didn't. I just heard a bunch of things that are audio in my ears. And I'm going to take a hot second. Sorry. Technical difficulty.
It's okay.
I'm hearing audio and I don't know where it's coming from.
Oh, do you think it's coming from me?
So I'm going to try and stop it really quickly. But I don't actually know where it's coming from. Oh, I know what it is. Okay, so I just have a problem with like browser tab maintenance. And so buried deep in the recesses of probably 5 windows worth of tabs that are so skinny that you can't see the X. You can only see the icon. You can't see any letters. I had opened it. There's a documentary about Lou Pearlman, who was like,
okay, Backstreet Boys guy
behind. Yes, that guy. And it's on YouTube. And I had that open in a tab because I was like, I'm going to watch that someday. And different story if I actually was going to watch it someday.
Oh man!
But anyway, whatever happened, that started to play. So I had Backstreet Boys playing in my ears.
I could see why it caused disorientation. People often mistake the Wedge Live podcast for a Lou Pearlman documentary. It's like, where is it coming from? What is that?
The worst. I'm so sorry.
That's
I appreciate your patience.
Yeah, we're gonna cut this together, and it's all gonna make sense. So a lot of people know you as you ran for city council in 2017, and so David brought this up, and it's good that he did because I might not have brought it up. It's hilarious, I think. Also, you may have hard feelings over it. I don't know. I'm going to read from the Star Tribune's, what I call it is the Kneecapping of Erica Mauter, October 30th, 2017. And this is the Star Tribune Editorial Board endorsing Jeremy Schrader and not Erica Mauter. Even though the vast majority of homes in her ward are single-family dwellings, Mauter said she favors upzoning the entire area, allowing developers to build a triplex on the footprint of a single-family home. Requiring parking would only increase the cost, she said. Adding that parking close to one's home is a privilege, quote unquote. The Star Tribune Editorial Board strongly supports public transit, but Mauter would do well to gain more sensitivity to those with young children, infirmities, or concerns about safety at night or inclement weather that make parking an issue not to be so lightly dismissed. How did you feel when that came out?
Oh, I was hot. I was livid. Of all of the things, I'm sure anyone who's ever shown up in a news article of any kind, of all of the things that I said, that's the one that they chose to wrote down.
Yeah. And so,
like, really?
Yeah, and that's
Okay.
that's one thing. If it ends there, that's one thing. It's just very irritating. 4.5 months later, guess what happens? Star Tribune endorsing fourplexes, the thing they kneecapped Erica Mauter about.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
I'm gonna read from that.
Oh boy. Okay, here we go.
In some neighborhoods, homeowners strongly oppose the idea, arguing that multifamily housing would change the character of single-family areas. They worry that more cars and traffic would affect property values, and some question whether there is demand for such units. However, the idea should not be shut down before a more thoughtful discussion. Increasing the number of multifamily buildings has the potential to increase population density and make additional affordable housing available without ruining neighborhoods. Same editorial board. 4.5 months later, the reason they wouldn't endorse you was the fourplex issue, the parking issue. Actually, I think you said triplexes, right?
I said triplexes specifically.
Yeah, they went further. They went further than you.
Yeah.
They unendorsed you, kneecapped you over that. They come out 4.5 months later, and it's like, hey, this is a good idea. How did that make you feel?
All the points that they made in their endorsement was all the stuff that I said. That's not what they wrote down.
Same editorial board.
You're welcome for the material, I guess.
How hot were you after the second opinion?
Ugh. Well, so, well, 4 years later, I'm clearly not over it. So, I don't know. I guess thanks maybe to Brower and to Alex Schieferdecker for continuing to enable me to wallow in this whole situation. So, I mean, small comfort in being right, I guess, but like, especially because I didn't win that race. But I don't know. The plan got passed, probably regardless of what the Star Tribune, 2040 plan passed, regardless of what the Star Tribune had to say about it. So that's a win for everybody.
And so, I'm a coward. Let's put that out there. So, are there times in your life where you think, right now, I'm pretty happy with my life. I'm glad I didn't win in 2017. Like that, being a city council member in Ward 11 at this point in this era, do you think I'm glad? Better Jeremy Schrader than me.
Yeah. Well, so I will say I don't live in Ward 11 anymore. We moved. And part of that was because, I don't know, my experience of campaigning with the well-meaning white people of Ward 11 was like, that was really difficult. And I imagine if we were having the conversation we're having today and I was their council member, I think it's pretty fair to say that, the same things coming out of Jeremy's mouth and coming out of my mouth land differently because it's different people who are saying it, right? And I think looking at the amount of shit he's getting for doing the right thing, standing up for the right stuff, voting the right ways, which I think he has, like I can only imagine. I mean, it sounds like it's been tough for him, and I can only imagine the kind of blowback I would get if that had been me instead. So, I don't know that I would say that I'm glad. I mean, I ran for that office because I wanted to have that job. And I wouldn't have run if I didn't think that was a job that I wanted to do. And like other opportunities became available and I have a job that I like and moved to a neighborhood. We moved out of Ward 11 because I needed to live in a more diverse neighborhood. And not with in close proximity to some of the people that were not willing to support me when I ran for council. And not just because they didn't support me, but the ways in which they expressed that, which were a range of, the similar condescension that the Star Tribune showed all the way to hostile. So I was like, I don't need that shit. Like, I really don't need it. And I need to see more Black and brown folks in my day-to-day. So I don't know that I would say that I'm glad that I lost. I am grateful that I landed in a job that I like, that allows me to still do some of the work, the kind of work that I like to do, that feels meaningful and impactful in the world. And it just is what it is.
And so are these the kind of things that you hear from other candidates of color? Or is just like, or was this in any way unexpected to you to like change your outlook? Like, it obviously change your outlook on the place that you live to the degree that you felt like, I need to find a different place for myself. But
I mean, on the one hand, none of it is surprising, but I thought I knew enough about what I was getting into, having like volunteered heavily for other campaigns. And it's different when you're the one. It's different when you're the candidate. Like the pressure and the attention are just that much more heightened. And so, I mean, I don't think I'm not a resilient person. Like, I'm a queer woman of color. Like, I'm used to people like pulling that shit, but just sort of intentionally subjecting myself to it over and over again was just like a little too much. And
and as the candidate, you can't go on Twitter and be like, can you believe what this person did to me? Because I did not know any of this. It's not surprising to me, but I didn't know that the experience you had was to this degree. I think I had heard that you had moved and heard a little of it, but I didn't know at the time.
Yeah. I mean, I also have like no regrets. Like, I really hope, in particular, at that time, the way we were talking about public safety was like in a safety beyond policing framework. And, I came in third place in what was effectively a 3-way tie in that race. And I hope that I was able to lay some important groundwork for where we are right now in that conversation. So I definitely don't regret doing it at all. Just, I guess you can't know what it's like until you do it. And, I said in the immediate aftermath, if I had known that's what it was going to be like, I wouldn't have done it. But now with some distance, I'm like, okay, I processed it. I've gone to therapy. Like, I worked it all out. Like, I don't have plans to run for anything, but, if the right opportunity came up, I would do it again. So it didn't put me entirely off doing that. I just know better now what I need for moral support through that kind of experience.
So what do we think about Ward 11? David Brower and I were pooping our pants over Ward 11 a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
so yeah. You said Jeremy Schrader has led and taken hard votes and taken positions that would have gotten you even more, in more trouble with people, a little worse treatment if you had taken those. But does Jeremy Schrader have a shot?
I mean, I think it's going to be tough. It is, for all the prognosticators among us, it is easy to look at the DFL endorsement process and try to extrapolate from that. I think that can only get you so far. Obviously, folks who participate in a DFL endorsement process, even if it is the most accessible version of caucusing and conventioning that we've ever been able to do, that's still definitely a certain crowd of people who are going to tap into that. So, I hesitate to read too much into the part where Jeremy didn't get endorsed and Emily Koski almost did. At the same time, like, I think about all those doors I knocked on Minnehaha Parkway and the reception I got from those folks. And I'm like, oh yeah, I see how Emily Koski is doing well. And it's disappointing that it's just, some of it is fear mongering. Some of it is legit concerns from people who don't know what it's like to live through actual experiences that people in other parts of town who have actually encountered, violence or just, I don't know, different living conditions. I remember in last December, when people were calling into council hearings about the budget, and clearly Ward 11 folks were organized around those meetings. And I remember hearing stories and voices, and I'm like, oh, I know exactly who that is. I talked to that person. I can picture their house in my head.
There were people who were afraid to walk their dogs. I'm like, this is Ward 11. Why are you afraid to walk your dog? Well,
right. See, it's all relative, right? And I think even when people say that, that's not actually true. Like, I have a hard time believing someone legitimately did not walk out the door to walk their dog because of something that happened in their neighborhood. But I distinctly remember, I'm like, oh, these people telling this story, like, I talked to them. I visited their national night out block party. But I mean, I think I can't. The problem is, I'm a human being that has empathy, so I can sympathize to some extent that people do have concerns. And let's be real, this whole race is entirely about public safety. Which is such a big deal that people have stopped griping about mostly bike lanes. So, and 2040 plan, we're on a completely different issue now, right? So, I think what I tried to be attentive to in 2017 and what I try to be attentive to now is getting out of the rhetorical grooves of these words that have become charged and triggering, right? Because I think it's still true that everyone wants public safety. I think it is true that, everyone thinks that, well, mostly people think that people who need help should get the help that they need. And it makes sense to people that we should send the right helpers for the type of problem someone's having. And some people need help imagining how we do that differently besides calling an armed police officer to show up after the problem has already happened, right? So what I have been less privy to, because I just haven't cared, is, well, I'll say, I sat in on some endorsement screenings for 2 different organizations early in the year. And what I heard from Emily Koski was she wanted to run because she comes from a political family and people have been asking her whole life, when is she going to run? And she just finally decided now's the time. That's not a good reason. Why would what's compelling about that? How does that give me any confidence that you're going to fix the problem that we're having right now, which, by the way, is happening under the status quo? Nobody's actually changed anything about our policing system. So, what are you going to do differently? I know. So I don't find it compelling, and it's frustrating. So
I talked to a lot of people about Ward 11 and politics in general, and people are constantly surprised to find out that she's a Hofstede and her dad was mayor in the 70s. People don't know this.
Mm-hmm. I think she has... I'll say it surprised me when she's told that story in those screenings, because I think she's been deliberately trying to hide. I think she uses that strategically when it's advantageous for her and tries to hide it when it seems to not be, is the sense that I get. So I don't know. It's also fascinating to me. It very much felt in 2017 like Ward 11 was, even though it ultimately proved to be competitive, was sleepy and people weren't really paying attention to it. And now all eyes are on that ward.
Right. Right.
So
is it a twin to Ward 13? I don't really think of Ward 11 as Ward 13-y, but I get they're adjacent. So there's some shared traits. I just don't know. I don't spend a lot of time there, so it's hard for me to know what to think of it demographically.
Right. I mean, it's a mix. So I think, if I'm remembering correctly, Ward 11 has the largest proportion of single-family housing of all the city council wards. And it's sort of in a way, it's like a tale of two worlds. So you've got like all the folks who live on Lake Nokomis or on Minnehaha Creek who are doing very well for themselves. And then you've got like the folks in Wyndham who are Richfield adjacent, or the folks who live in the Boston Terrace housing complex, and they're living a very different life from folks in lower Tangletown. So we used to joke. So we lived in the north half of Tangletown, which is Kingfield, on the Kingfield side, and I called it the flats of Tangletown because it's actually not the tangly part and it's not on the creek. But it's I don't know. It's still fascinating to me when I say Ward 11. People are like, most people don't have any clue like where it is. So I don't know. It still flies under the radar quite a bit, but produces quite a lot of votes.
Yeah.
So
I've got a little bit of a theory. I didn't come up with this, I don't think, but the idea that white people in Ward 11, people who are comfortable homeowners, get a little bit of taste of the violence that North Minneapolis just experiences year after year, as a matter of course. And the reaction is so outsized in a place like Ward 11. They got a little bit of a taste of it. And it's like, you got to bring the hammer down. Law and order politics, the backlash comes so hard. And I feel like that's where the I'm afraid to walk my dog stuff is coming from, which is a ridiculous thing to say when you consider like the everyday year after year life of people living in North Minneapolis.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And so how do we talk to people about the Public Safety Charter Amendment? I asked David Brower this. I ask everyone this. How do we talk about it in a way that brings people with open minds, not people who spend all their time hanging out on a crime-themed Facebook page, but people with legitimate open minds who are unnerved by the sound of gunfire in their neighborhoods that they haven't heard before, but they want to do the right thing. They want to do the smart thing. How do we talk to them and convince them that voting yes for the Public Safety Charter Amendment is the way to go?
Yeah. One of my talking points on this, depending on kind of where they're coming from, is like the idea that we ask police to do too much. We ask them to do all kinds of things that they didn't sign up to do, that, they don't want to do, they're not necessarily good at doing, that they overreact because they feel ill-equipped in a situation they find themselves in. And so why don't we make it easier on them by not putting them in those situations at all? That sounds a lot more pro-cop than I personally am inclined to be, but I think it's a truth of the matter. And it's a thing that I've heard from, folks who actually work in law enforcement. So that's one thing. I think the other thing, and this plays well sometimes not, is, this charter amendment gives us a chance to like figure out what we could possibly do differently. Like, all the problems we're having right now are a product of the same system we've had for decades. So, none of us knows for sure. A lot of experts have suggestions, but like, it's a definition of insanity thing. Like, we keep expecting the same system we have to produce different results, and it's clearly not. It's clearly producing the same results, which includes a lot of Black and brown folks being brutalized by police. So, like, why don't we give ourselves, like, this is a procedural vote. Like, let's give ourselves the chance to even try something different. And we can't do that until we take this vote. And then we have a period where everyone gets to chime in about what they think we can and can't do, should and shouldn't do.
Right, let's trust our city council, our elected leaders, to actually fill in the details rather than like some charter provision that was enacted in the 60s by the police union? Why do we want to tie the hands of the people we're voting for today and defer to the police union of 1961?
Yep. And then I go back to, the way I've been talking about it for a few years now is like, let's get the right helpers for the problems. For the right problems. Not the right problems. Get the right helpers to people who are having problems. And it's, if you've had a property crime, if, somebody broke into your house, of course you want someone to come and take a report. You need a report for your insurance. You want some assurance that somebody's going to do something about it. But like, someone with a gun isn't helpful in that situation. Like, somebody should come. I agree with you. Somebody should come and help move this problem forward, but it's not a guy with a gun. And there's plenty of times when you need a youth worker, you need a social worker. I know social workers even have become like every time somebody gets shot, a social worker will fix it. Like, okay, sure. Like, not every time, but like a lot of the time it can be helpful.
Right. We're out of balance with our response. Way out of balance.
Right. Yeah. So, until we pass the charter amendment, we can't even begin to address, if we agree that we should maybe have some of these other types of responders on staff, we're just constrained from even trying to shift that balance right now. So we got to give ourselves a chance to try something different.
And one of the things I struggle with constantly is if we, as a city, as residents of the city, have a shared theory of what happened in 2020 and how we got to this place, we all can probably agree we're in a troubled place right now, uncertain, and we think there are things we need to start doing differently. But the theory of what actually happened, whether it was a systemic issue or whether it was like 9 council members stood on a stage that said defund and suddenly that is responsible for what's happened over the last year. Like, the police killed George Floyd, a police department with a reputation for racism, history of abuse and corruption. They killed George Floyd. We had the protests. We had indiscriminate macing of protesters from police cars, rubber bullets going into the faces of unarmed protesters and journalists, untold millions in lawsuit settlements with more to come, police quitting en masse. And whether you believe these are bogus PTSD claims or legitimate, like they caused this problem and the system was not up to even like remaining standing to deal with it. It completely disintegrated in the face of it. Like, it seems clear to me that the system like lit the fuse and then like exploded itself. And there are people who kind of want to pin that on 9 council members who stood on a stage that just said defund, as if that was the precipitating cause here and not the system itself. I don't think we should rebuild that system.
Right. Exactly.
Just to echo some of the things that you've said. But do you think, how do we get to a shared, maybe this is me repeating the same question, but how do we get to a shared understanding of what actually happened? Because we don't like agree on the reality of what happened. If we could agree on what the reality of what happened, it might be easier to come to a consensus on what we do next.
Yeah, I mean, this is where I'm a little bit stumped because I don't know how you look at, 9 minutes of video footage of George Floyd on the ground and Derek Chauvin on his neck and not understand what happened. That was egregious. Most people agree with that. I mean, set aside the people who are always gonna blame a victim, but most people agree with that. And I don't know how you look at that and think that, number one, that was an anomaly, and number two, that people being upset about it was somehow unreasonable. So I also think, I don't know, in a public discourse kind of way, not in like the, one-to-one with your friends in the backyard, like with people who might actually be persuadable because you're their friend and you're a credible source who's going to work through the issue with them. Like, I don't know that we can, at the level of public discourse, really, or I don't know how, somebody who works in media or maybe an artist can say this better than me. Like, the gap between people who think people are more important and people who think property is more important. That to me feels like a fundamental disconnect in terms of our understanding of the aftermath of George Floyd. And there's always going to be folks who are going to, blame people for burning a police precinct and any number of other buildings down, without critically wondering, like, really listening to why any of that happened. And I think it's possible to hold both truths, that people were pissed and lives are more important than property. And it does really suck for someone whose business happened to be located on Lake Street and they got caught and all of that. And now their business is burned down. Like, it does suck to be them. It is life-changing for them. And like, that's where we are in society. And maybe they want to advocate for police stopping killing people too, because that is what precipitated the damage to their business and their livelihood. Not, yahoos out being hooligans for shits and giggles.
So do you have any thoughts about the Strong Mayor Charter Amendment?
Oof.
Any? I think about it too much.
I think it's bad, and I think everyone should vote no. I think no one... I mean, in some respects, it's a similar problem to the Yes for Minneapolis Charter Amendment, which is, it's not, for better or for worse, it's not clear on its face what it's going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And people should take that seriously when they're figuring out how to vote.
Well, the way I think about strong mayor and public safety is council is trying to take some policy authority over police with the public safety charter amendment, which is a petition-driven charter amendment. And then the Charter Commission gave us a competing charter amendment that just takes the power the mayor currently has over the police department and says, hey, let's give that mayor similar power over all the city's other departments. And so it's in a way, a struggle for power in addition to the various public safety considerations. Also, It's been the charter, the Strong Mayor Charter Amendment is being framed dishonestly by proponents as a solution to public safety problems when the mayor is already completely by charter in charge of the police. That has always been the case, and that won't change.
Yep. Yeah, I think one of the things that I wonder about that, agreed on all those points, the Charter Commission is so out of pocket. What are they even doing? And I think when you come to implement something like that, the devil's in the details too. So that's when I say, like, I'm not sure what it's going to do. Like, that's it's one thing to pass the Charter Amendment, and then how it gets translated into actually new structures is still really unclear. And I don't know that a single charter commissioner has a plan for how that gets done, but not their job. So what I've been wondering about is, does support for the Strong Mayor Amendment track with, like, is there a correlation with the likelihood that you're more pro-cop, more conservative, council member incumbents and challengers are going to win? Like, is there a scenario in which we keep a progressive majority, but then also pass the Strong Mayor Amendment?
But
I feel like nobody's talking about the strong, like, nobody's campaigning, so there's a whole campaign around.
Charter for Change is a group that's sprung up to campaign for the Strong Mayor Charter Amendment, in addition to all the other ones. So I feel like the conservative side of Minneapolis politics is very in tune with these both charter amendments, and is kind of like campaigning on both of them. On the progressive side, you've got Yes for Minneapolis, pro public safety charter amendment, but there is no equivalent group on the progressive side that's saying, hey, this strong mayor thing's bad news. Like, people like us are aware of it and think it's a bad way to go, but I don't think it's like it is surprising. I talked to a city council candidate who says the strong mayor charter amendment is got a little bit of like, it's a thing that they hear about when they knock doors from conservative types. It's getting some traction on that side. And when you like, you'll see it at on neighborhood association agendas. Charter for Change comes to a neighborhood association. They give them like 15, 20 minutes to talk about it. I think the Downtown Minneapolis Neighborhood Association is going to have a forum. They have a forum scheduled where they're giving like 90 minutes for like a Q&A session with Charter for Change, in a way that you'd have a candidate forum, except Charter for Change is the only group that they're talking to. And I mean, they can say, well, there's no equivalent group we could talk to. I don't know. They're active on this, and progressives are not.
Yeah. Okay. Now that you mentioned that, that rings a bell that they exist. And the more conservative, the conservatives in Minneapolis are like really good at popping up these campaigns and getting the lawn signs out and funneling the money and paying someone just enough money to put stuff like that. And they have the command of that kind of attention that can make a forum that people downtown or wherever will be interested in attending in a way that feels like just so out of proportion to what progressives are inclined to do. Like, I wonder, like, it feels a little bit of like an ideological divide, in the sense that on the more progressive side of an issue, like if we're going to run a campaign, you're going to have a whole field program and you're going to knock some doors, and like there's a way of going about it that is really different from the way these more conservative types of campaigns operate. And right. I don't know if it's just a resourcing thing or if it's like a, no, this is the way you do it kind of thing. But it just seems like these two sides are always going at this kind of stuff really differently. So
I think in 2017, they had a PAC. The conservatives had a PAC, $270,000 that they spent mostly on mailers accusing progressive candidates of being baby dentists. That was and doing like bad photoshops. I think they photoshopped like a black child into a mailer in North Minneapolis for Barb. And I think that's all they had. So my point is, that's all they had, really. They didn't have any kind of other infrastructure. I think they have started propping up these groups in 2021 to try to level the playing field, because 2017 was the year Carol Becker like accused me and Black Lives Matter and the Bicycle Coalition of being like this triumvirate of dark money that was secretly running Minneapolis politics. So I feel like conservatives have kind of come back in 2021 and tried to prop up a bunch of groups to match the like real progressive infrastructure that is here year after year after year, that isn't just popping up in an election year to say, you know, look at all the community support that this thing has. I mean, it's obviously got a lot of support. We've got 6 groups that we just started to say it has support.
If only Wedge Live and Black Lives Matter and the bike people had a dark money triumvirate, we'd all be in a much better place right now. Also, it's only dark money if you don't like how they're spending it. Otherwise, it's just the regular PAC rules. So,
right.
Yeah.
So do you think people care? Do people care about the money coming in on the conservative side? Because in races like Ward 3, Ward 11, Ward 4 with Philippe Cunningham, so Cunningham, Fletcher, Schrader, they're getting outraised by conservative candidates. A lot of like real estate interests, big developers, big downtown interests, people like the Downtown Council. It's clear that those, like, and it's odd to have challengers. If a challenger is going to outraise an incumbent, it's because they have, typically have big business behind them. Do people care? Or will people notice
I don't think people care.
People don't care.
I don't think people care. I think people have. I think most people have a vague sense of, whether they're hearing from someone or not, whether they're hearing enough from someone or not, and they don't actually make the correlation between the amount that you hear from someone totally depends on how much money they have. And it's because they spent it on mail or on media or on people to knock your door, or on people to organize other people to knock your door. So, until at the last minute it shows up in a media story, and that assumes that media accurately covers the dynamics of where that money came from and how it's being spent. Maybe then, but I really think most people don't get how it all works, and don't actually care.
Because I'm slightly depressed at the idea of a Rainville and Hofstede duo returning to the city council. We can't do this, Minneapolis. We can't. Can we?
That's a throwback that nobody wants.
Yeah, because
except clearly some people want, but I don't. So
because Barb Johnson, former council president Barb Johnson, has gone on to a career endorsing Republicans for county commissioner. This is a Republican family masquerading as DFL that we had in charge for 50 years. Let's not let them come back.
That's a sign. That's what is extra disappointing to me about LaTrisha Vetaw, which she's already mad at me, so I'm just gonna go ahead and keep talking keep talking about her publicly.
How did you make her mad? Tell us how you made her mad.
I gave my honest opinion about some things she said in an endorsement screening, and her person she had sit in on the endorsement screening reported back to her that I said them. And then I got a message from her, and it brought up an old tweet that I don't even remember tweeting, but probably did. And she thinks I've had it out for her for a while, which is not really true. I'm just going on how I see her comport herself as an elected official. But I don't know. All of that happened before we see who's funding her city council race this time, which actually makes it all worse, which is, she's being supported by the Barb Johnsons of the world and that whole alignment of folks with money. And, I worry that, this is mitigated somewhat because she's running against Philippe and they're both Black, but some people in there who think that it's the right thing to support a person of color, but won't do any further digging. They love that LaTrisha is reflecting all their pro landlord, pro cop talking points that make them feel good, and it makes them feel even better that it's coming from a Black person. So it's disappointing.
Yeah. One of the most shocking things I've seen in 2021 was the LaTrisha Vetaw Q&A session that she did with a group of landlords, where she was doing this caricature, the worst caricature of a politician you can imagine. She was doing about herself. I put on lipstick and I sell your message. And that's not an exact quote, but that's really very close to what she said.
It's really about us working together. You all are the experts. I'm the expert so politics is really a popularity contest, right? I'm the expert at getting ready, putting my lipstick on, curling my hair, and selling our message. You all are the experts at giving me what I'm selling.
It's wow. Because I didn't have any hard feelings towards LaTrisha, but that video was an eye-opener.
Yeah.
Either she's blowing smoke up these landlords' butts, or she really sees herself that way. Either way, it's kind of I don't know. That's not how you don't have to, if you have to do politics that way, I don't know. You're not my candidate.
Generously, like, part of how you get elected is you try to collect all these endorsements. And you can get to a place where you're like, I really want y'all to like me. It feels very important for me to have this support right now.
Right. And you'll say whatever to whoever.
Win. Right. And so I would hope for someone who's running the second time around that they've calibrated that better. But that appears to not be the case. So I don't know.
Yeah. Support Philippe Cunningham is what we're saying.
Basically.
July is my birthday month. And this year, I'm asking for cold, hard cash.
Is there an issue we should be talking more about, but is being overshadowed by public safety? We talked a little bit about how public safety, rightly, is the number one issue on a lot of people's minds on both sides. But what should we maybe be talking about that is just getting the short end of the stick?
If we still have a housing crisis, the pandemic has exacerbated it. And we, have seen definitely over the last couple of summers an increase in folks camping out in the parks because they don't have a place to live. And that's just, there's a direct correlation to there's not enough housing, and it's expensive to live here. I feel like relative to other cities of a similar size, that the proportion of the cost of living that is housing is as high in Minneapolis specifically, and in the Twin Cities in general. So even in some of our peer cities, or some cities slightly larger, like the relative cost of housing is lower in other places. So
that's a little surprising. I would have assumed the other way around, because I think of Minneapolis as being famous for being relatively affordable compared to incomes, but I'm sure that changes as you break it out.
I think it's true overall, but the percentage of that cost of living that we're spending on housing is higher here. Whereas in other places, other parts are more expensive. So,
and one of the side effects of maybe voting for these law and order backlash candidates, these conservative candidates, is that you have a city council who would be less inclined for a progressive solution to these other issues that maybe a clear majority of Minneapolis residents would actually favor. But you vote in the big business candidates, and there's no hope that they push policies to address these other things like housing.
Yeah, I'm still mad. I mean, Jacob Fry ran on two things. He ran on public safety, and he ran on ending homelessness in 5 years. Right. So we're 4 years later, and homelessness has gotten worse, and public safety has gotten worse. So there's literally no reason to support Jacob Fry at this point. He has the two things he said he would do better, he's done worse. I'm actually also still, apparently I hold grudges. Still mad that Betsy Hodges lost to this guy. Guy. Whether you like Betsy or not, she didn't deserve to lose to this guy. Right. So, yeah.
Yeah, whenever I look at a mayoral candidate, like let's take Sheila for example this year, an activist, and you might underestimate her and say, what right does she have to run for mayor? What qualifications does she have? And I'm characterizing someone else's uncharitable opinion. Like, what the hell were we thinking with Jacob Fry? Why did I think that was a good thing to do? Not saying me. I ranked him third. I will own up to ranking him third. But I don't know. Let's have higher standards for our white mayoral candidates, or white men mayoral candidates, please.
All right. Sounds like you learned that lesson, so I won't harp on you anymore on that one.
Do you think it's going to engender a lot of anger at Wedge Live that I admit to having ranked him third last time?
I feel like you've
it was a stop Hoke vote. It was a stop Hoke vote.
Okay, that's fair. That's reasonable. That's
history has proven me correct. I would do it again. I'd do it again.
All right.
Ranked Fry third, and I'd do it again. Okay, so you've been on Click, right? which means you might have experience with Steve Brandt, candidate for BET Steve Brandt. Do you have any opinions about Steve Brandt? How should we, what issues should we be considering when we're looking at BET this year, whether or not Steve Brandt is the right person as one of the two to send to the Board of Estimate and Taxation?
Yeah. First of all, shout out to Krista. I understand tough circumstance for her. Wish Krista Mosing was going to be on our ballot. She was basically a perfect BET candidate, but
yeah, we
understandable. Yeah, understandable, and we'll support her in all her endeavors going forward. Steve is, so I do know Steve from Click. I have more or less gotten over this particular grudge, which is the first year we were on Click together, which was 2017, he confused me with Samantha pre-Stinson and Gonzalez now.
Were you both on Click, or did he just
No, just two Black women run for city council. So, certainly understandable that one would confuse us for the other, but I'm over that one for real.
Okay.
I mean,
I'm glad for
Steve.
His sake.
I will also shout out, I think Click is a good farm team for BET candidates. It is, you get a good window into a significant chunk of the budget. There are actually pretty good conversations around kind of what are our values around where we put this money. Steve asks a lot of good questions. You can tell he used to be a reporter. I think he will totally nerd out on all this stuff. And I hadn't, prior to this week, landed on exactly who I was going to rank in what order. Now that Krista's not filing, that makes that a little more clear. But no, I think Steve's a solid candidate. I will also say, I am, me personally, as a Black person, I am going to, my bar for white people and for white guys in particular is high. So he's got to really meet these standards, right? So, but I think, if what you want in that particular role, someone who's going to dig in, understand this really technocratic stuff and ask hard questions, I think Steve will do it.
My bar for white guys is incredibly low. So I just need Steve to convince me that he's smart enough and competent enough to take care of if I had cats, he would take care of my cats. He wouldn't mess that up, which is something I think Carol Becker would blow up your house. She would. You'd come back from a vacation, she would have blown up your house. So I think Steve is a smart guy. He's a nice guy.
Yeah.
I'm not endorsing him, but we got along pretty well when he came on the podcast.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, here's the, I think we're getting close to the end. This might be the closing question. Something that David Brower put into my head, but it's something I've been thinking about a lot too. It's how do we come together as a city, the people at the top, the people at the bottom, and govern this city again so that the people at the bottom feel included and feel like the government is legitimate. Because I've been around some protests in recent months where a chant has developed, and I'm going to do something embarrassing, which is say a chant from a protest on a podcast. If you work with the city, you're a MF and piggy. Have you heard that one?
I haven't, but it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. And so when I hear that, I always think, well, the government is us, the city. We elect the city council. This is an election year. We're responsible for that. And so there's this anti-government sentiment that's bleeding over from just anti-cop into well, if you're with the city, can't trust you at all. Nothing good comes from the city. What do we need to do to rebuild that trust?
You sound so idealistic and hopeful.
Do I?
You do.
No.
I had an aha moment that I had a while back is getting involved in politics is inherently hopeful work because you have to go into it expecting that things can change, because otherwise, why would you bother doing it? And at the same time, I do think people who have had legitimately bad experiences with government, like, are right to be skeptical. And, if the way that looks for you is like law enforcement, is cops, pulling you over all the time and hounding you all the time and harassing your family members all the time, then, the rest of city government as the entity that's responsible for fixing that problem, like, yeah, why wouldn't you be skeptical? Like, I think that is legit. And I think, so I think a kind of hard lesson for me to learn, because this isn't the way I grew up. Like, I grew up in a household that was like, of course we vote, and of course we watch the news, and of course we, pay attention to all this stuff that's going on, and you should have opinions and you should think critically about all this. I don't know what it's like to be someone who doesn't give a shit about any of that. And I'll allow for, there's also some people who are in a place in life where they just have bigger problems because they don't have a place to live or they're trying to make ends meet, right? Like, they have more important shit to worry about than following like drama at City Hall, or spending an entire year or more than really 2 days thinking about a city council race that they may or may not have realized is happening. So, one of the keys is in like helping people understand all the ways in which government does work, whatever that looks like for their life circumstances. And I don't know, this isn't a hopeful answer, but like, I've kind of come around to the place where I'm like, yeah, I get it. I get why some people don't give a shit. And I don't know that I have a great example to convince them that they should. That's also a relatively small portion of the population, right? And so thinking about people who are definitely going to vote, but are maybe not aligned with how we think we should move these problems forward. To some extent, we don't want to be amending the charter every 4 years, but these are the kinds of things that force us to have a conversation about a question like this together. And so, we'll see where we land this year, but I think it matters that we've been forced into this conversation. And I think one of the things that I feel like I'm struggling with is the activists who led the response to Derek Chauvin murdering George Floyd last year, and the organizing work that they did it was community organizing. It was not electoral organizing. And there's a very choppy continuation onto translating that into electoral organizing. And so you have totally different people, campaigns, individuals, candidates for office, picking up that baton. And so the way that narratives were generated and moments like, however many council candidates on a stage in the park saying they're going to defund, like the way those moments came together, the folks who made that kind of organizing happen are showing up differently. They're still organizing. They're definitely organizing around like the Yes for Minneapolis campaign, but it's definitely not like we're also tying this to individual candidates that you should vote for that look like traditional like political campaigning. So I think it matters that there are people who are inclined to do this work in community and help people work this out, And it matters that they have chosen not to engage directly in electoral organizing.
So speaking as a white guy who moved to Minneapolis in 2012, I understand why people feel like totally disenchanted with like presidential candidates, the Senate, the Congress. I felt really empowered. And again, speaking as a white guy, moving to Minneapolis, to a place that actually has local politics, and like your council member can be your neighbor. You can you're seeing them all the time, speaking with them, having conversations with people who are on the city council, or you go to an event, there's the mayor, talk to them for 3 minutes and see where they're at. Like, you can get involved in local politics and like have an impact, like as just a regular person, in a way that like focusing on national politics, I feel like, well, you're impotent in that area, really, as a single person. I don't know. That's why I am hopeful about local politics, as bad as things seem. And like, let's change the charter and like let our elected officials do what they do as they interpret the will of the people and collect their election certificates. Let's put that power in the hands of the people we elect.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think it also, like, people have asked me, like, would I ever run for the state legislature or anything? And my answer has been no, because like even as it feels hard in Minneapolis right now, these are the kinds of conversations and the kinds of arguments I would rather be having than the kind of shit they're dealing with the legislature. So it is tough and it is hard, and we're in our Overton window is way over to one side, and that's just a totally different space that I'd rather be living in.
Like, the distance between you or I and Lisa Goodman is like nothing compared to like the conversations that happen even in a state legislature. Like, so much possibility. Okay, well, that's not the last question, Erica Mauter. I gotcha. It's not the last question. Give us a recommendation.
Bryce.
What are you enjoying? What are you enjoying lately? Anything. It could be entertainment. It could be like a walk in a specific park. What is making you happy recently? What puts you in a good mood?
2 answers to this. First answer, I live pretty close to the Minneapolis Institute of Arts. And so we like to walk the doggies over there, and they have a labyrinth space that's tucked behind it on the backside of the MIA, adjacent to the MCAD campus. And so when I need to think or work something out, I like to go over there and walk the labyrinth. So that's cool. The other thing that's bringing me joy right now, I, in the middle of the night, one night last week, ordered 10 pints of ice cream from Jenny's Ice Cream. 10 pints of ice cream I ordered. That's about half the pints I would have chosen from everything they had to offer. But I was like, this already feels excessive, so we'll just do this in 2 batches. But
I don't know pints, so you have to put that in the context of like, how many Aldi tubs of ice cream is that? Because that's my unit of measurement for ice cream.
Oh, I'm not sure. I know what an Aldi tub of ice cream looks like.
I don't know, what is it, like a gallon and a half? I'm not sure.
Ooh, okay. So 10 pints is, there's actual math here. Two
you're
pints.
A chemical engineer.
4 quarts. There's 8 pints in a gallon. So
okay, well, that's
6
actually
pints
not very
in an
much.
Aldi tub.
That's not very much
6
ice
pints
cream.
in an Aldi tub.
I have an entire Aldi tub in my freezer. So 10 pints sounds like a lot. It's not that much. You haven't done that much damage.
Noted. But yeah, no, they come in some really, really great, interesting flavors. So I've been working my way through that. Now, 10 pints of ice cream for me is like a several month supply. I just don't eat ice cream that much. So, but it's been a treat. They're delicious. It was funny to me because, my wife is training for a race, and she likes to go camping. So every week she's got like a new camping stove or like some new running shorts arriving. And like, I'm online in the middle of the night ordering ice cream by the box. So
ordering ice cream online, which is a thing I didn't even know you could do.
Oh, you totally can. Jenny'sIceCream.com. It's delicious.
Okay.
Well, sorry. I don't know if you have rules around promotions like that.
Oh,
but
I don't care. Jenny's Ice Cream, send me 10 pints of ice cream. We're promoting.
There you go.
We're promoting your ice cream. Anything else, Erica Mauter? I'm about to close out the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on. I feel like this is going to be, people are really going to enjoy this. And the best part of the Wedge Live podcast is the guests. And you've been a great guest.
Happy to join. Thanks.
Okay. My guest has been Erica Mauter. I'm John Edwards, your host. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.
This is a real thing. Real thing.
None of you have the balls to stop this. Stop this.
I've got plenty of time. I have nothing else going on today.
We're in the Wedge neighborhood right now.